Hello and welcome to another episode of Nuts and Bolts. I think I have a secret talent for somehow dressing up, really not purposefully, for the episode.
Right, subconsciously.
Last time I dressed up in blue, and this time I'm dressed up in a kind of a pink color.
That's funny.
So today we're going to be talking about pink.
All things pink.
Mark insisted that we did a separate episode on pink because he claims that that's a completely separate color. It's not a muted red, it's a color to itself.
Yeah, I could make that argument.
Uh-huh.
Well, because if you add white to any of the other colors, blue, green, purple, orange, one can say, oh, that's a light blue or that's a light green. But saying that's a light red, no, we say, ooh, that's pink. So it has a own little sort of universe unto itself. Both historically.
Why do you think that is?
Boy, scientifically, I have no idea. But in terms of historical associations with color, think about it. Think of all the things that pink could bring up for us. Everything from flesh, which is a big one, to, I don't know, what are some of the other?
Bubble gum.
Yeah, it has both a cutesy kind of, and pink is really big. I see a lot of sweatshirts with pink and Japanese contemporary artworks with a lot of pink. But if you go back historically, it has all these kind of other sort of gritty, sensual, sexual, flesh-related associations. But, if you think of early Renaissance, some of the robes had these beautiful pinks that were just spiritual. So everything from the gritty, nitty-gritty, sensual, sexual to spiritual. So it's a loaded color, I think. And tough to work with.
So we're gonna do a little bit, you already mixed some colors for us that we're gonna look into, and then again a few artists that you kind of wanted to point out.
Right, that came to my mind.
To pink.
Yes.
All right, let's jump into the color mixing world and then we'll come back.
I chose to play with 3 different reds. Look at this wonderful palette of pink, the Pink Palette Palace. So what have I got here, Maria? I've got Cad Red Light. I chose to play with 3 reds. A Cad Red Light, Cad Red Medium, and then this is Quinacridone Crimson, which is really similar to alizarin crimson. One can use that. You could even play with magenta, and then plenty of white. Here's my experimentation. And so this is what I like to do, and am offering other artists to consider, is to use a notebook, sketchbook. And here's what I discovered, for what it's worth. And I like to make notes. So this is the Cad Red Light, and I make notes, obviously, plus white. And I like to add white 3 times to most of my experiments so I can really see what happens with the halftones and the light halftones. And I made a note here that this is leaning towards, to my eye, a little bit of orange.
I was just about to say that it looks like it has a little bit of yellow in it, but it doesn't really. It's just a color.
It's because the Cad Red Light on the color light spectrum is leaning towards orange to begin with. So that's what gives me these, I noted here, peach-like colors. It does look like it has a little yellow in it. Again, that's because this is leaning towards orange. Then, with the Cad Red Light, again, I add white 3 times.
Medium.
I'm sorry, Cad Red Medium. Notice how it is seemingly much cooler as a color. And so these are a little more dull as pinks. That's all I did was add white 3 times. Then with the Quinacridone Crimson, it's transparent, first of all, so it has a different kind of consistency. But when I add white 3 times here, it's really leaning towards violet, and you can see that. Plus, these are kind of more vivid or hot pinks, if you will. So those are the notes I made to myself. These are slightly cooler, and they kind of gray out more quickly. Then because when I use pinks in my color, in my paintings, Maria, I tend to mute them or create chromatic grays. So I don't usually just throw a hot pink into a painting. It could happen, but I tend to kind of play with them. So I thought, well, let me see what happens if I mute them with 2 different colors, one being yellow ochre and one being raw umber, because the raw umber is more neutral and the yellow ochre is much warmer, but they can both mute the color. So that's what I've got here. So let me replace this one. Again, this is not advanced mixing, it's pretty straightforward, but I do make notes. So here we go. So this is the pink that I got with the Cad Red light, plus white. Then I mixed a little bit of white into the yellow ochre to match the value. And this is what I got here, which is a very lovely, and all these colors are wonderful, but they're very different. This is the thing. So that's what you get when you add a touch of yellow ochre in here. I added a little bit of white here, Maria, to match the value so it doesn't go super dark quickly. Lovely. Then I tried the raw umber, which is a more neutral gray plus white, and this is the color I got. I'm trying to stay about the same value all the way through. So very, very different, you can see that. Then here I've got the Cad Red medium plus the yellow ochre with a touch of white, and that gives me this color. Again, it's similar but very different. And then once again with the more neutral gray, the raw umber, it gets into the violets here. You see, it gets to be more chromatic with these colors. And then finally with the quinacridone crimson plus white, that's my pink, halftone. Yellow ochre matching the value or roughly, and that gives me this color here. Look at the difference when you mute them. This is what I want people to see. The colors here versus here when you mute them, when you tone it down a little bit, either going warmer or slightly cooler. And then once again with the raw umber, which is a more neutral gray, giving me this color, which is a muted version of this, you see. It seems that when I go with the raw umber, Maria, plus a little bit white if necessary, it really goes quickly into the chromatic grays. Whereas if I use the yellow ochre, it still is muted. It still has a fair amount of saturation, in other words. So again, these are simple notes to do with pink. But I want to say one more thing about pink, and that is I'm fascinated with what happens with pink with other colors. That's really the fun, and that's the excitement. What happens when you put pink in conjunction with white, yellow, green, blue, black, small to large amounts depending. And we'll take a look at some images, and that will help people understand. So it's not just about pink alone. It's always about where it sits with other colors, which makes it a wonderful color to use. So Maria, in terms of talking about pink historically, I'm going to draw from this book here, which is a wonderful book, Chromophilia. It is the history of color in art. And in the final pages on the chapter of red, here's what it says about pink. It says light red does not exist. Blended with white, red does not become pale, but it transforms into an entirely different color, pink. Pink has its own distinct associations, which artists have embraced and upended, using the color to convey messages ranging from sensuous desire to uncomfortable voluptuousness to sinister violence. At once it is playful, sweet, girlish, sensual, raw, even gritty. Pink is endlessly fertile. That's a lot of loaded associations for one color. So we've got 3 examples historically to illustrate this idea. Can we start with the earliest?
Yes.
Here we have early Renaissance artist Fra Angelico, and there are those lovely pinks of both the angels, their garbs, as well as the floor. And I mixed just now some of these pinks. This would be, if I had to mix that pink, I'd use a little bit of the a little bit of the yellow ochre, you see, to get that kind of color. Yeah, right here it is. Not too far away, right there, you see.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then for the hotter pinks,
the ochres would match some of these.
and I can pretty much guarantee you that the artist used that to subdue that. And then here are the hotter pinks, and so here you can see that in these using the crimson colors. So different kinds of pinks. So that's and there are many, many more examples. I could probably turn to any page and see some beautiful pinks. So they were used quite a bit in his paintings, you see. They're throughout. Look at this. Beautiful. So that's, and then not just Fra Angelico, but many Renaissance painters made beautiful use of the pinks. But again, what is next to these neutral grays, the blues, the whites, the blacks. So it's really conjunction with the other colors that I wanted to point out. We never appreciate color, Maria, by itself. It's always how it looks next to other colors. And then in more recent times, 20th century, we've got 2 artists just to show. This is William de Kooning, early work by William de Kooning, abstract expressionist painter. But again, these wonderful pinks, both kind of hot and subdued, but again, look at what it's next to. These are sort of raw ochre greens, if you will, you know. I don't know if I can quickly find one of his earlier paintings of abstract expressionism, but there's one that in particular, here's some pinks involved with white and black. And then here we have a nice hot pink over here. So he really liked the fleshiness of it. Oh, there we go. That's the one I was looking for. Pink Angels, it's called. It doesn't get more sensual than that, you see. So this is Bill de Kooning. And then finally we have Philip Guston, American painter, also mid to late 20th century. And these are some earlier pieces by him. These were almost sort of impressionistic, expressionistic paintings. All these incredible myriads of pink. And then he would bring them into these paintings as well here. So you see the hot reds, but then you see these pinks as well, juxtaposed. And finally, in his late work with these sort of cartoonish figures, he would introduce pink as flesh, you see. I think of the Guston pinks as sort of the dirty pinks, as you will. So those are three. There's many, many more examples, obviously, but those three came to my mind.
Anything else you want to say about pink?
I think a lot of people might avoid pink. They might think like, what am I going to do with it? Because it can be a challenging color. So to those folks, I would say roll up your sleeves, dive in with pink, but experiment with the different kinds of pinks you can get, but also what it looks like next to all these other colors, because that's really where the action is. That's where the fun is. That's where the discovery is.
I do want to just revisit this quickly. So this was basically 3 different reds, right? The
Yes.
Cad Red Light, Cad Red Medium, and
Quinacridone crimson.
Crimson.
Also alizarin crimson could work for magenta.
So pick a few of your favorite reds that you have in the studio and add white more than once. So Mark did 3 jumps here to see how that red will play with white and what kinds of pinks you're gonna get. And then if you want to be more curious, ambitious, and advanced, so to speak, here are other options. So using a
Yellow ochre
to mute the reds with, and then
the raw umber
to get different kinds of tones
and different
That's correct.
saturation levels from muted to chromatic grays.
of these pinks.
The pinks. And we did that, I did that, everyone, because when I work with pink, every once in a while I'll throw it in pretty hot, like just with white, but oftentimes I do find myself toning it down a little bit so it plays more nicely with other colors. That's
I
why
see
I do that.
here behind us a little bit of
You see it right in
pink
here.
as well.
It's
Yes.
coming through right in here. Even someone could say argue that this is a form of pink. So I use it quite a bit in conjunction with other colors. I like it.
Let us know what you think about pinks. Is that something that you want to stay away from? Is it too girly?
Do you love it? Do you use it?
A beautiful color to you? How do you use it? Do you mute it with other colors or just straight pink,
Yeah.
red and white?
Yeah.
And share your comments with us. We always like hearing from you. So anything else?
I think not.
All right, that was it. Pink.
Thanks.